Есть, родила вчера. Нет.
Не так сильно газуй. Бабушки. Но я тебя прекрасно понимаю.
Поздно пришли тут. Было чувство фотографировать.
Отходи.
We're hearing a lot about alleged war crimes and genocide recently. But what do those terms really mean? And how would someone like Russian President Vladimir Putin be prosecuted? There have been some horrific scenes out of Ukraine since the Russian invasion began. President Biden branded Putin a war criminal some time ago, and he has more recently accused Russia of genocide.
You may remember I got criticized for calling Putin a war criminal. Well, the truth of the matter is so it happened in Ruka. This warrants him, he is a war criminal.
Firstly, war crimes are actually defined. It's not just a term that means very bad stuff. Broadly, war crimes are actions that contravene the Geneva Convention, which was drawn up in the years after the Second World War. These days, war crimes are most likely to be prosecuted in the International Criminal Court. The court was set up in 1998 and began sitting in 2002. It can hold people accountable for 4 crimes: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression. War crimes covers things like the intentional targeting of civilians, the killing of people who have already surrendered, and other grim stuff like mutilation. In the case of Russia and Putin, the targeting of civilians is what most people have in their mind when they suggest war crimes have been committed. Images from the outskirts of Kyiv, for example, suggest that Russian forces have massacred civilians, though Russia, of course, denies this. But even if we were to accept that such atrocities have happened, prosecuting someone like Putin is no easy task. First off, prosecutors would have to prove that Putin personally ordered war crimes or was complicit in them, and that proof would presumably be hard to come by. Then there's the secondary question. If you had such proof, and if you brought charges, how would you get Putin to literally face those charges, given that there's no possibility of him giving himself up? Neither Russia nor Ukraine, nor the United States for that matter, are members of the International Criminal Court. And the same point makes it harder to prosecute Russia or Putin for the crime they are most obviously guilty of, the crime of aggression. That's a charge that can only be brought by one ICC member against another. Now, there have been instances of people being indicted by the International Criminal Court who are still fugitives from it. The Ugandan militant, Joseph Kony, and the former president of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir, are both in that category. Former Libyan president Muammar Gaddafi was also indicted, but he was killed soon afterward. Here's a sobering thought for those who would like to see Putin in the dock. In 20 years of its history, the ICC has only secured 10 convictions. The former leader of Serbia, Slobodan Milosevic, died in his cell in The Hague, facing war crimes charges from a special UN tribunal into crimes in the former Yugoslavia. The former president of Liberia, Charles Taylor, was convicted by another special tribunal of war crimes in Sierra Leone. Taylor was sentenced to 50 years in prison, and he's still behind bars. But that doesn't make it any easier to see a way that Putin himself can be convicted. That's not to say he hasn't committed war crimes or that he hasn't ordered atrocities. But getting him into court and convicting him would be a whole different story.